thank you for joining us in the BW Businessworld Emerging Awards, Emerging Companies Awards and Summit. Emerging companies are the companies that will be, I would say, they're somewhere in between being a startup and being an enterprise of the future. So really, today's conversation is about how can they leverage themselves rightly in this environment where everyone is predicting a uber growth for India over the next 5 to 10 years. What are the regulatory issues they need to deal with? How can they navigate them? How can they look after compliance? Because compliance is taking up their time, money, and effort in their mind space. And most importantly, the two issues that really that you can throw light on are raising capital. It's raining IPOs, both from the primary and secondary markets. Money is abundantly available. And second is the fact becoming a technology play. If you're a company, you need to be a technology company, whatever business you're in. So we couldn't have had anybody better than you, Mr. Ravi, with your background experience in advising entrepreneurs, companies, and even being part of the policy making in the country. So I would like you to start with a quick remarks to give a background of why you believe the next few years are the best years for emerging companies to grow and leverage from the business environment that exists in India.
So first of all, thank you, Dr. Batra, for inviting me. The first and foremost factor that is there is the transformation that has from traditional business to the non-traditional business or to the new age business. So this transformation has been happening over the last 10 years, but it has accelerated in the last 5 to 7 years. And you have seen a lot of growth of fintech companies, neobanks. You've seen a lot of service providers. You see Credex type of company. You see companies which have, you have, of course, the successes behind like Paytm, but you have the new companies which are very robust and are coming up in all fields. Let it be financial services, let it be manufacturing, and let it be robotics, let it be artificial intelligence. So what worries everybody is in the space of the emerging companies and startup is the cost of compliance for them and the amount of compliance that they have to do. And the cost of compliance can come down drastically if artificial intelligence and uniform platforms are created for them. So that is my key. You wed both technology with the small emerging companies, whether it be in any space, manufacturing, aerospace, you can take anything. So it has to wed there. And the cost of compliance should be automated. And that is what I think is going to be the next level that we are going to see. The growth is going to be there because of this. And technology has played a very predominant part in the whole growth. And the manufacturing companies with core strength, that has to wed with the technology companies.
Thank you,
that's the first take.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi. Let me ask you, in your view of working with large enterprises, you're being a past chairman of the Bombay Stock Exchange, and really the SME board was brought into play during that time. So you understand the power of SMEs, especially they contribute to 35% of the GDP, they create jobs, and they really look after the bottom of the pyramid. Now, tell me, what do you think are the mistakes that most of the emerging companies or SME companies founders make, and how to avoid them?
So first of all, they are too obsessed with their ideas. So the first and foremost mistake is their idea may be very good, but they have to be flexible and very, very fertile in their imagination to change the business model that is required. Because see, any idea to convert it requires capital, requires growth, you require marketing, and above all, you need to have a story to tell people. So how do you tell a story? So it's a package that makes a company successful. And if a person has a good idea, they fail because they are too obsessed with their idea and are not fertile to change it with the market conditions. That is the first and foremost reason for failure. The second is the capital. They don't plan their next few steps. So being a part of the BSc incubator, what we realized as a company should have good advisors who can handhold them throughout the process. First the idea, start the work, put seed capital, then how do you go to the next level? How do you raise the capital to the next level? And then how do you market it? Because it's not about only capital, because the cash burn is very high. How do you take it to the people, sell your product, and then how do you optimize everything? So it's a composite package. So the second reason that everybody fails is the capital. And the third reason that they fail is they have not read the market conditions. So the catch-up is very fast in a startup. You float an idea, in 2 years, somebody else is coming out with an idea, maybe a more improved version of the idea. So it is like iPhone 1, 2, 3, you are on 13 now. So every version gets better. So even that's why the fertility of the person, the quick response that they take to the product, to the market is very important. And packaging all this is very important. And the story too, and people should believe the story.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ravi, again, entrepreneurs are dreamers. So sometimes they will be carried away with their idea. The right sounding boards are mentors. In India, while we put a lot of value to capital, access, we do not put that much value to advice, to mentorship. Do you think that has changed in the last few years? Do you believe it needs to change? Because if you are specialist mentors and you have wise people who may not understand technology, but they understand the environment, they understand capital, they understand regulatory frameworks, they understand how the government thinks, especially if you're in a new area like cryptocurrency or blockchain or gaming or NFT, there is a policy risk also involved. So do you think mentorship for emerging company entrepreneurs can be a panacea for all their ills?
So you have raised a very good point. Mentorship is a very, very valuable thing. And advice in the right form with a positive set of people is always good. And advisors and mentors can be people who can polish the ideas, so to say. Because ideas, as you say, they are dreamers. So the dream has to be put in a box of success, has to be put in a small box. And that box is very important. Now, the other point is a mentor can be a risk manager also. The mentor can be an entrepreneur also. Mentor can be a person who can help them reach out for policy. So a mentor would have had an experience of his lifetime, would have made some great success somewhere. And then you take the help of the mentor and you go according to the mentor's chart, use your own idea, take all the, at the end of it, the buck stops with the entrepreneur. Mentor is a person who can put the boundaries for a person. And that boundary is, if you adhere, we are going to be successful. So mentorship has taken a new role. Let me tell you, at least I know 11, 12 people, 13 people in the IT space, in the fintech space, in the banking sector who have become mentors. And they have seeded many companies. And I can tell you one such person, I won't name. He said, I'm ready to not take any fees, but I'm ready to put whatever fees into my equity. So they both got wedded in that sense. They both took the challenge together, and some great companies have made out of this model.
Okay. Now let me also move on to another area. Emerging companies, I said, also they're in terms of figuring out their business model. They may have multiple irons in the fire, so to say, but maybe one particular idea may become dominant. And it may be futuristic. So an emerging company entrepreneur has to worry about revenues today, but he or she also has to look at what will create the most value in future. Is there an iterative process or a playbook by which these trade-offs can be measured and the best ideas and best value creators can be identified?
So any new company is unique in its own way, but there is a segment in which they work. And there is something called as a beta factor or the risk factor in each segment. So there are analytical tools to compare what other similar, if not exactly similar, some of the peer groups would have done. So you can see what has been the failures of others or what has been the success story for others and how you can beat them. It can be done through very good artificial intelligence and data. And I think that is the key. So you look at the fintech space, it's crowded, but who is going to succeed? Those who are going to have a strong business model, who have learned from other people's experience, who have learned how they can make themselves unique in their own space. So everybody is talking of cryptocurrency. There are so many companies, platforms, but who is unique? So that uniqueness, along with artificial intelligence and the path which you mentioned, path is a very important thing. So one has to calibrate their path. See, this is where I am today. This is my deficiency. This is my strength. And this is where the failures of others have happened or successes have happened. And you go and measure it each stage and move forward. And that's the only way one can succeed.
Okay, Mr. Ravi, again, entrepreneurs are dealing with trade-offs, right? Whether it's deployment of capital, whether it's deployment of time. Now, in an environment that is constantly changing, especially, as I said, the new areas, emerging areas of blockchain, crypto, gaming, how do you minimize policy risk, especially for the entrepreneur and his or her investors?
So policy risk is perpetual. Let me tell you this. If you look at...
I said minimize, I didn't say eliminate. It cannot be eliminated.
Yeah. So again, so for example, just let me tell you, digital banking is one policy which is going to come. RBI has announced the policy. So I think it's important for a person to evaluate themselves. Where do they fit in a prospective policy? So for example, in the crypto space, I saw a very unique thing. They said, no, we are not platform, we are not an exchange, but we are a university. We will teach crypto. So what happens? There is no policy that is drive a crypto university or a crypto education. So,
right.
So within the space, you can find safe places where you can develop yourself. And I think very important is a reasonable forecast. You know where the global trends are moving. For example, crypto, you said, gaming, you said. So the global trends are visible. So so you see a 3-year-old child or a 5-year-old child now is interested in gaming instead of toys. So where is the trend going? So one has to be very clear about the trends that are there, the trade-off which you mentioned, and I'm very clear about the direction which one has to take. So within the policy framework, you know what is the policy that is going to come. You know roughly the global policies, and you know where it is going to head. So the policy, normally everybody knows any policy in India takes 5-7 years. Take the insurance sector. Till it did not open, it was 24%, then where it went today. So it takes that 10 years of period for a policy to be there. So you have to ride with it. You have to forecast your policies. And within that policy, you have to work out that this policy is safe and we can take a risk in that. So I think it's all about risk mitigation.
Thank you so much. We are doing this conversation almost 10 days before the budget. And again, this budget, as you've written for Businessworld also, is a very important budget. This is not a normal budget. This budget is ahead of the crucial assembly elections. This is in the backdrop of an almost 2-year-old pandemic. So what do you think will happen in the budget? What are your expectations? And how do you think it helps the emerging companies ecosystem?
So all emerging companies have one basic issue is the IT and artificial intelligence and the computer peripherals. And you see today also I saw a report, semiconductors are absolutely not available. There is a shortage. So I feel that there will be something on this so that the IT infrastructure is sort of fully there. And that is one thing that I strongly feel. And I'm advocating this at all places because we have a lot of import backlog on that, and the companies are hungry for it. And I think the IT infrastructure and the whole peripheral phone, etc., will only go only once semiconductors are. This is one thing that I very strongly feel. The second thing that I feel is logistics, which is very important. We have seen the pandemic and how logistics has played a very important role in the whole space of supply chain. So I think that is another area which will also include rural logistics also. So that is a second thing. I see a lot of push on the on technology with agriculture. That is what I see. Soil testing and many other such things which we will witness in the agriculture sector. But from a budget viewpoint, I feel very strongly focus will be on agriculture, semiconductor, but the most important thing, because we have challenged the world in a way by Atmanirbhar, and Atmanirbhar does make every Indian proud. And I think the import substitution, item by item, needs to be encouraged. And that is what I feel, especially in the handicraft and the export sector, because export of handicraft and textile is the second largest employer today. So I see that, and we have a very steep competition with Bangladesh, Vietnam, and all these other countries. So I think if we have to put our footprints into the global market, I think very important that the textile exports needs to be promoted. And similarly, agri exports also needs to be promoted. You have seen the importance of haldi in this whole pandemic. And such things, organic food, all this will play a big role in this budget. And I see a lot of SOPs coming into this.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi. Also, let me ask you that when we talk of budget, for at least the last 10 years, if not more, there has always been this expectation that income tax will be replaced by an expenditure tax. Do you think this will happen in this budget?
I don't think so.
And why you believe that it won't happen?
So actually,
is it a good idea, Mr. Ravi?
No, it is a good idea, but we are not prepared. At this point, we are not prepared. We have to streamline first faceless transactions, faceless appeals. There are many things, even what people faced in terms of the IT system that was prevalent was, in the lockdown period, we couldn't file our returns. So I think government is cognizant. I think surely they are cognizant of the fact that the SSCs have been troubled a lot by all this. So I think this is not a time to transit. Because it's a good, in the long run, it's good. But I think if it even comes at any stage, there will be a time moratorium that will be given to shift. Because that's not a bad idea.
A time for transition.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Doing it with proper planning, being ready for it, and there being a transition between. Now,
Sure.
Two more issues that are very important is one is inflation, right? And the other is employment, and they are in some way linked. When the employment does well, demand is better. Demand is better, inflation is checked. And as I was reading in Fareed Zakaria column, he talks about how the leaders of the world are more worried about politics than they are worried about economics, and hence inflation is very, very high. So what is your commentary there, especially keeping in view that the budget is 10 days away from us? Do you think the government will bring in extra measures to check inflation?
My first answer to the whole thing about politics versus economy. So if you look at the last 2 years, the pandemic has put all the economies in a spin. With all the SOPs that have been given, all the relief that has been given. So the whole thing is about how to contain the damage, how to reach out to people, how to see that the citizens are safe. forget, and also how to put their brand up. Everybody has done that. So there is a lot of cost to all this. And so economy, very correctly articulated, economy has taken a backstage. If you even look at US, economy is taken a backstage. But it's time to put, and the last budget was a good budget. It really addressed a lot of issues, structural issues of economy. And I am very confident that this budget is going to also move towards reforms. And that is what I am very confident, because I'll tell you, and that's the only way to take care of inflation. We cannot allow this inflation to go beyond a certain level. Inflation is good, but the percentage has to be curtailed. And I think one is aware of it. And I think the government is going to take measures to reduce inflation. And that is what, and you see, when the whole costing comes down, and another thing about employment, a lot of people are having this misnomer that there is this unemployment which is going up and all that. But let us also see how many people want to have employment today. There are people who want to be entrepreneurs. So the percentage of entrepreneurs which we have, there is no research data available, but the number of people who want to be entrepreneurs rather than being employed is quite different today. Everybody wants to be employed and yet become an entrepreneur. So you see, there is a change of mindset, and that has not been, say, calibrated anywhere. We don't have sure data for that. But you see, this unemployment thing is absolutely is not the only thing. It is about the earning capacity. We should talk of earning capacity of the Indians, of our citizens. So it is more than the employment, it is the earning capacity.
Absolutely. Now, the other issue is also about the fact is that the government collections have been as per the targets or better than the targets, and we may have a record collection in terms of revenues of the government. And of course, we believe that there will be a saving, though the government is saying that the planned expenditure is on schedule, it's on target. So the savings are not because whether it was COVID relief, so on and so forth, that money has been utilized to pass it on to the citizens of the country, whether it was vaccines, so on and so forth. Now, where do you think, if the government has a surplus, where do you think the government should be investing to be able to bring the economy back? Of course, infrastructure overall is one area, healthcare infrastructure is another area, building digital capabilities is another area. Tell us, where should the government be spending if there are surpluses?
So all the three areas are important. And CapEx has to go into CapEx, and infrastructure is one thing that money has to flow. There is no, it is inevitable, because unless there is infrastructure in any form and CapEx, this whole earning capacity of companies is going to reduce. So I'm not talking of the big companies, but we were talking of MSMEs and SMEs, and how do they start earning better? So if they have better infrastructure, for example, in the last budget, we talked about textile park. So if the textile park takes off and all the benefits come in from there, and from good port facilities are given, the cost is going to come down. So I think more important is the infrastructure is very important, and infrastructure and CapEx, that is very, very important in my view.
My last question to you, Mr. Ravi. 2021 and 2020 were difficult years, both from a lives and livelihood standpoint. Lots of jobs were lost. So infrastructure spending can also bring back these jobs, because there is a trickle-down impact. The subcontractor employs people, the vendors employ people. What is how to grow the number of jobs, both in the formal and informal sector? What is your comment there?
So my comment is very clear. There is this urban population, that is the semi-urban population and the rural population. So we have to create jobs at the root, that is the rural population. Very important to create jobs and self-employment in the rural population. I have been an advocate of decongesting the cities, people to move towards rural areas, smart villages, smart cities, because there the infrastructure is getting developed, communication is there, transport mechanisms are there, and people are close to their home, the cost will come down. They will have some good methods of earning if we actually develop an infrastructure there. So I think it is important to keep people grounded to the area where they are, give them an opportunity at the local place. And every local place has certain abilities. You take Tirupur, it has certain ability. Now, let me give you one example. BHEL, when it was conceived, the whole city of BHEL got uplifted because the SMEs came into place there. A lot of SMEs grew there, and the whole township grew with it. So I think that is a classic example of Trichy, how it got developed. So I think this is one very old example, but I think we can create smaller cities with a small hub based on what their strength is. Somebody like, for example, some states could be good in terms of providing medical facilities. For example, you take Isabgo. There are 2-3 states which have abundance of it. So can we do something there? So I think it cannot be a universal formula. I think it has to be grounded. It has to go and reach to the bottom of the pyramid. Very important.
Thank you so much, Shri S. Ravi, for talking to BW Businessworld at the Emerging Companies Forum. Hopefully, over the next few days and weeks, pre-budget and post-budget, we'll be in conversations with you to deep dive into issues and expectations that the business fraternity and the citizens have from the budget. Thank you for being here, and my gratitude from the Businessworld team.